I'm Dr. Natalie McKee, and I am an audiologist here and also the owner of the practice. I grew up in a town not too far from here, Piper City, Illinois, which is about an hour away, and I grew up on a farm there. So there were always chores involved if you had 4-H animals. And we showed hogs, so there was getting up in the morning to do that. And we raised dogs as well. We raised Dalmatians for a little while. We had the male and the female, and we didn't have anywhere near 101. I love to travel. I was an exchange student in high school, and I lived in Norway for a year, and I'm still in touch with my family there. It was terrifying at first because when I left, we couldn't find the town that I was living in on a map. It was that small. So I was going from Piper City that was this big to apparently some town that was this big. And it wasn't until I got to Norway someone was able to locate where I was going. And I went to high school and it was all in Norwegian, and I did not know Norwegian when I left. But I do remember my first test took me 3 hours to take because I had to translate it all into English, answer it, and then translate my answers into Norwegian. I chose though to be a physical therapy major when I went to college. And my parents signed me up for a mentoring program because I was so far away. They wanted me to have somebody that I could go to. And the mentor that I was matched with was I think he was either the dean or the chair of the department, and he was teaching the intro to audiology class. And so when I went to see him, he was, how are your classes going, things like that. And I said, I just don't know if this is what I want to do. And he's like, well, do you like health and human sciences? And yeah, I did like that. And he says, you should come take my class. And so I did. I took his class, and I realized that I knew a lot of it just from being around audiologists all the time. I was constantly having my hearing tested growing up, and I really like the science of it, and it's kind of like a puzzle. You have to figure out what works for people, and the technology. You're kind of a jack of all trades, working with different parts and pieces and things. And so I changed my major after I took that class. Well, I grew up with a hearing loss, and it was diagnosed when I was young. I don't have all of my hearing in my right ear, and I don't remember ever having hearing well in that ear. I really didn't think of myself as a hearing impaired person because I had grown up and never had a hearing aid. It was never a problem, and even going through my classes, I really didn't even think of myself as a hearing impaired person until I started realizing that I couldn't manipulate my situation anymore, and then I was struggling. I couldn't always have someone sit on the left side of me. And working in groups because we started working with patients, I couldn't always make them sit over here, or in study group or something like that. Working with people, I couldn't always be on that corner. And so that's when I started looking at, well, maybe I do need a hearing aid on that side. I think I was about 20 years old when I got my first one, but I'd had my hearing loss ever since I can remember. I can tell people that I can function without my hearing aid. Obviously, I can take it out right now and we can still sit here and have our conversation. But I wouldn't want to leave the house without it because I just realized how much more it completes my day in helping me hear and move around. And I think my family would agree that they've noticed a big difference. They also didn't realize how different it was before and after. Like the perfect example is the television. I didn't need it as loud anymore. And my mom was just shocked when we were at a restaurant. She was sitting on the right side of me talking, and I heard her. She's like, oh, you can hear me. Yep. It's the hearing aid. It's a quality of life issue. You think I could probably do okay without this, and I can hear you okay, but things aren't clear, or I struggle in this certain situation, and that's what a hearing aid does. It definitely doesn't make it like your hearing's normal, but it's an assistive device, and that's what a lot of people talk about. It amplifies to assist you, and it definitely assists me. I think a lot of people are nervous to have their hearing checked because they're afraid that they're going to be pressured into something. Because a lot of times they'll say, it was that restaurant, it was that waitress, it was that crowd, and that only, that was just at Christmas. Every other, time I'm fine. But then there's enough of a pattern where it's like, okay, it was here and here and here, and she said something to me about it, and you can't ignore it anymore. And you feel like you need to do something about it. And for a lot of people that are still working, I think that moment comes faster because it's important for you to hear in order to do your job. Whereas if someone's retired and they don't find it's as necessary, but then they also have those moments where they say, in hindsight, I really was missing a lot. These really do make a difference, even at home, even when I thought I was doing okay. I think we have those experiences with patients a lot, and because you're giving them something back that sometimes they don't realize that they'd lost. You know, you lose your hearing gradually, and so, you know, when you give them a hearing aid, it's all suddenly coming back to them. And so we've had moments where patients cry. I can think of one particularly where it was a younger patient who didn't think her hearing loss was that bad, and we put the hearing aids on and she just started crying. And I wouldn't have expected that reaction from her, because on the scale of, you know, you can do okay to you can't hear anything, she was doing okay. And just to give her that back and to have that functionality back and making her life easier, it was just, it still kind of catches me when you don't think someone's gonna have that reaction and then they do, and they're like, wow, I can hear that. I really like those moments.